The prevailing narrative suggests a potential airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities is imminent, driven by political pressure to act before it is too late. However, military and intelligence assessments indicate that such an operation would fail not because of a lack of missiles or precision, but because it ignores the fundamental geography of Israel and triggers a regional escalation that permanently destroys United States' strategic leverage. The failure isn't about hitting targets. It is about the downstream consequences where oil markets destabilize and Iran accelerates its nuclear timeline to a point where diplomacy becomes impossible. To understand why this strategy collapses under real-world conditions, we must first dismantle the myth of the single strike. Popular culture often depicts military operations as cinematic one-and-done events where a specific bomb drops on a target, neutralizing an enemy forever. This logic worked for isolated reactors in Iraq in 1981 and Syria in 2007 because those facilities were singular, relatively shallow, and lacked immediate backup capacity. Iran is not Iraq or Syria. The Iranian nuclear infrastructure is dispersed across multiple sites, heavily fortified, and deeply buried underground. Even with the use of 17 B-2 bombers dropping 30,000-pound bunker busters over a 12-day campaign, intelligence suggests the timeline for their program would only be set back by several months, rather than halted permanently. Israel lacks the heavy ordnance required to destroy deep underground facilities like Fort Al without direct American military involvement, while Israeli commandos have successfully smuggled drones to neutralize air defense systems. They cannot penetrate hardened sites alone. The United States possesses massive ordnance penetrators capable of such destruction, but their use requires Washington's active participation to avoid an uncontrolled escalation that the administration has historically opposed. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. This brings us to a critical distinction often missed in general news coverage: the difference between physical damage and strategic neutralization. We must look at what is not being hit during these operations. While Israeli airstrikes can burn buildings, they frequently miss the actual uranium stockpiles, which are often hidden or stored separately from processing facilities. The campaign has eliminated approximately 14 leading Iranian nuclear scientists and damaged over 24 buildings at Isfahan. This erodes critical tacit knowledge required to operate complex centrifuges, but it does not destroy the physical highly enriched uranium itself, which remains largely intact. Satellite imagery confirms 6 craters created by 12 massive ordnance penetrators, yet the program's timeline was set back by only several months. The strikes were a technical marvel on paper, but they failed to achieve their strategic goal of permanently halting Iran's path to a bomb because the material threat remains largely untouched, while the physical infrastructure is merely damaged rather than erased. The most dangerous consequence of this approach lies in how it alters human behavior and removes diplomatic off-ramps. The loss of tacit knowledge creates a severe bottleneck for rebuilding, but paradoxically, it also removes any incentive for compromise from Tehran. Killing scientists turns a technical negotiation into an existential survival struggle for the regime. Rather than capitulating to pressure, Tehran is now stabilizing damaged sites and accelerating plans for a third covert enrichment facility near Isfahan. Furthermore, Iran has already demonstrated willingness to launch ballistic missile strikes on Israeli civilian areas, including Tel Aviv. This signals that any future strike will be met with immediate high-intensity retaliation rather than negotiation. The operation triggers an irreversible shift in Iranian behavior where the only rational choice left for the regime is total mobilization against perceived existential threats. This dynamic creates a trap for American strategic leverage that Washington cannot easily escape once the missiles are fired. By attacking Iran's nuclear sites without a clear path to permanent de-escalation, the region moves from a state of managed competition to an open conflict that threatens global oil flows and forces the United States into a defensive posture it cannot exit. The United States possesses massive ordnance penetrators, but their use requires direct American military involvement to avoid an escalation that Washington has historically opposed because it jeopardizes broader regional stability. If Israel launches strikes without full U.S. backing, they risk being unable to penetrate deep underground facilities like Fordow and failing the mission entirely while still provoking a massive response. Conversely, if the United States joins in directly, they burn diplomatic capital with allies who oppose such unilateral action and lose their ability to de-escalate once the first bomb drops. The strategic trade-off is stark. A successful airstrike on paper may be physically possible, but it remains strategically catastrophic for American interests. By engaging in this operation without a clear exit strategy or guaranteed permanent neutralization, the United States risks burning its diplomatic capital with allies who oppose such unilateral action, while simultaneously forcing Iran to accelerate plans that make future diplomacy impossible. The failure is not in the bombing run itself, where precision weapons can physically strike targets. It lies in the realization that destroying the program physically does not stop the political will to rebuild it faster, especially when the alternative is perceived as regime collapse. The implications extend far beyond a single theater of conflict. As Iran accelerates its timeline and mobilizes proxies across the region, global oil markets face imminent destabilization risks that no amount of precision bombing can mitigate once open hostilities begin. The United States finds itself trapped in a scenario where every military victory on the ground translates into a strategic defeat for long-term influence and regional stability. This is not merely about whether missiles hit their targets. It is about understanding how incentives shape state behavior when survival is at stake. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.